In a few days, Alex is going to make a very important presentation in front of his colleagues and his boss. A day or two before the presentation, the idea of speaking in front of a crowd comes to him from time to time, but every time he tries not to think about it. Whenever the thought of what is going to happen on the day of the presentation comes to him, he quickly tries to distract himself. Alex is afraid of speaking in front of a crowd and gets anxious even thinking about it. When such a situation occurs, whether mentally or in reality, both his mind and body begin to react to some extent. His hands sweat, his heart beats 1,000 times a minute, his breath becomes short and shallow, his muscles start to tighten and contract, and his mouth becomes dry. Alex's mind strongly reacts to these signs as well. First, it makes Alex understand that these signs are not a good thing at all. He has to quickly do something about them because others will definitely notice that he's distressed and will judge him. And because of this, he may lose his social status. Secondly, because his mind thinks that these feelings are very complicated and important issues and something should be done about them, it directs all of Alex's attention to them and destroys his concentration. This makes Alex unable to do the work he is very well prepared for. When such things happen to Alex, his attempts to ignore or, conversely, to control them usually backfire. Anxiety doesn't go away, and sometimes it becomes even more intense. Finally, the situation ends in a way that Alex doesn't like, and to some extent, he feels relieved. We should add that even when Alex is not in a situation that causes him anxiety, two things still occupy his mind: rumination about the past and worry about the future. Alex is tired of these events and feels that he should make a change in his life. He thinks that he should break this vicious cycle. Maybe he can get rid of this damned anxiety. But how? How can he do this? To find the answer, we need to take a trip to the history of mankind. In the course of evolution, we have acquired traits that could save the lives of our ancestors many times. For example, in facing dangerous animals that could kill us, or thinking that, if I don't have provisions for tomorrow, I might die of hunger, we gradually acquired the characteristics that gave us the motivation to survive. This motivation was the feeling of danger in front of an immediate incident, and the feeling of anxiety for an event that did not happen. Our body would respond in a certain way, such as increasing our heart rate or increasing our breathing rate, and our mind would also try to focus on getting out of that situation alive. These characteristics were transferred from our happy-to-be-alive ancestors to us, and were institutionalized in the genetics of our bodies and minds. What we experience today is the legacy of our lucky ancestors. Now, does modern man still need these features to face the challenges of his life? In moderation and appropriate to the situation, maybe, but not too much. Anxiety in optimal limits can be a motivation for us in the direction of advancing our goals, but sometimes the extreme reactions it creates in us actually become more damaging. Anxiety in today's world is like our ancient fear of bears and snakes, but in a more generalized, chronic, and pervasive sense. Today, in stressful situations like speaking in front of a crowd, we don't need our heart rate to increase, our muscles to tighten, our teeth to lock together, and our body to start sweating. There's no point in trying to spend all our focus on escaping from that situation. In fact, we logically know that such reactions are not suitable for our situation and often make things worse. But this ancestral inheritance still does its job. Therefore, when the difficulties of life create various emotions in us, we need more efficient tools to face them. And one of those tools is adaptive emotion regulation. We respond to our emotions in different ways in life, and this is called emotion regulation. People may use healthy or unhealthy emotion regulation methods in their lives and get good or bad results. American psychologist James Gross presents a theory in which it said that we humans regulate and manage our emotions in 5 different ways. The first is situation selection. In this case, we actively try to seek refuge in pleasant situations and avoid unpleasant ones. For example, by using this method, Alex tries to avoid situations in which he has to speak in front of a crowd, and instead goes to places where he feels calm and safe. The second method is situation modification. Alex sometimes uses this technique to try and joke and laugh at himself, instead of bearing the pressure of anxiety when he makes slips while talking. The third is attention altering. It means deliberately taking our attention away from the signs that worry us. Many times, when anxious thoughts or images come to him, Alex tries to distract himself by, for example, watching a football match or playing with his mobile phone or checking social media. The fourth method is cognitive reappraisal. In this way, we change the thought we have about a situation. For example, when Alex is going to speak in front of a large crowd, instead of thinking that these people are all looking at him closely and is going to be judged, he thinks that he's probably not going to deal with many of these people again in his life, and because of that, their opinion is not going to have an important impact on him. And the fifth method is response modulation. We try to modify the behavior that is indirectly driven by our emotions. For example, if Alex is really anxious about a future meeting to the extent that he wants to say no to it, he actively tries to modify his response and control himself, because he knows that it will not bring good results. We use the last two items a lot in mindfulness, but before explaining more, we need to talk about the relationship between our emotions and our thoughts and behaviors. You may have heard someone say, "When I got scared, I ran away," or "Because I have anxiety, my mind is always busy." These sentences may bring to mind that there is a linear relationship between our emotions and our thoughts and behaviors, and so when an emotion arises in us, there would be certain thoughts in our mind, or we might manifest certain behaviors. This is true, but it's not the whole truth. Psychology has shown us that, contrary to popular belief, the relationship between emotions and our thoughts and behavior is a reciprocal and two-way relationship. The fundamental and practical point here is that it is not only emotion that affects our thoughts and behavior, but that we can influence the intensity and quantity of that emotion by practicing a particular type of thinking or a particular type of behavior. This way of affecting emotion can result in healthy or unhealthy, or using the technical terminology, adaptive or maladaptive, consequences. By healthy, we mean that in the long run it has a positive effect on reducing unpleasant feelings of an emotion. The two mechanisms of cognitive reappraisal and response modulation are two of the foundations of mindfulness, and have been proven to be effective in regulating emotions. For example, many of us may be inherently more sensitive to our own environmental or internal stimuli and signs, or interpret them more negatively. You may feel more anxious than the rest of your friends when you are in a situation of speaking in public. As a result, you tend to see others' looks as more judgmental and unfriendly, or show more negative reactions in response than others do. This is the effect of emotion on your thoughts and behavior. But we can change our cognition about that situation, which is cognitive reappraisal. Or we can actively change the behavior we show in response to it, which is response modulation. And this work over time can moderate our initial level of emotion towards that situation, and like in the example mentioned earlier, reduce anxiety. But how should our cognition and behavior be for this effect to really happen? This is where we need to talk about the implementation of mindfulness. Mindfulness, as one of the efficient methods of emotional regulation, consists of 5 elements: observation, acting on awareness, describing feelings, non-judgement, and non-reactivity. In observing and acting on awareness, we try to focus our attention on the present moment and behave in a way that shows our awareness of the current situation. The goal is to put aside the distraction caused by thoughts focused on the past or the future, and be able to be in the present moment. Just to be, and to be aware of the experience that originates from outside or inside of us. Then we can see our own experience in more detail and with high accuracy, and describe it with verbal labels to better understand its diverse nature. The other 2 parts are non-judgement and non-reactivity. While our attention is focused on the present moment, we notice some signs. It's important not to judge them. It doesn't matter if it's heart palpitations or thinking about how bad I feel right now. It doesn't matter whether it's a good sign or a bad sign. Just let these thoughts, feelings, or anything come and go without evaluation or reacting to them. Using these elements together allows us to mentally distance ourselves from our feelings, thoughts, and surroundings, and look at them as they are. Also, with the help of mindfulness, we can reach a kind of acceptance of our own emotional states and thoughts, without having to control them or react to them. Many anxieties and their unpleasant consequences happen to us when we take a reactive, judgmental, dry, and inflexible approach to them. In mindfulness, the goal is not to change what we think or to manifest our emotions in a different way. Rather, the goal is to change our relationship with and our perspective of our emotions and thoughts in a manner that is flexible and functional. Now, Maybe if Alex comes to you and asks for help, you can have some suggestions for him. So Alex doesn't have to constantly run away from thinking about the day he's going to give a speech in front of the crowd, or the moods he gets in the meeting, and he doesn't have to ignore them. This approach is definitely not efficient in the long run and does not help to improve his life and health. It's better for Alex to let these thoughts and feelings come and go, to try to distance himself and look at them only as thoughts or feelings. In fact, he just needs to observe them with the perspective that he need not draw any special conclusions or to be afraid of them. He need not worry and ruminate about them, but he can just observe them and calm down. This distance and acceptance makes Alex pay attention to his unpleasant thoughts and feelings to a reasonable extent, instead of constantly spending his time and energy on them. In this way, mindfulness can help us take control of our emotions, instead of being controlled by them.